Welcome to the Cross-Sector Roles and Cooperation podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the SafeBorders project. The SafeBorders project is funded by the European Commission's Internal Security Fund and aims to combat child trafficking by enhancing the capabilities of judicial authorities and frontline workers through a comprehensive approach. Specifically, the project focuses on strengthening the expertise of judicial authorities by facilitating knowledge exchange, identifying best practices, and conducting capacity-building activities. In addition, leveraging technology in the digital era, the project will introduce an artificial intelligence platform to support cross-border cooperation amongst judicial authorities. This podcast episode, Cross-Sector Roles and Cooperation, features two experts who play key roles across different levels of the anti-trafficking response. Vanessa Branco is a psychologist with a master in community psychology. She's been working on community projects since 2007, supporting vulnerable groups and championing human rights and access to health, education, and employment. Since 2019, she's been coordinating the specialised multidisciplinary team for victims of trafficking in northern Portugal at the Association for Family Planning. Manuel Albano is Vice President of the Commission for Citizenship and Gender Equality, a role he has held since 2020 and previously from 2009 to 2011. He trained as a social worker and has worked on gender equality, women's rights, and gender-based violence since 1994. From 2012 to 2020, he directed 6 northern delegations. He is also Portugal's national rapporteur on trafficking in human beings, coordinated 4 national plans against trafficking, and serves as the OSCE focal point on gender equality and human trafficking. I'm Friederike Salatier, consultant and researcher at IPS Innovative Prison Systems, a SafeBorders project partner, and I'll be your host for this episode. Welcome, Sir Albano. Madame Branco, thank you for accepting our invitation. It's a pleasure to have you with us today on the podcast. So, starting with our first question. When a child at risk of trafficking first appears on your radar, what specific role does your organization take in those initial hours, and what information or action from other sectors would most improve your response? Regarding this first question, Madame Branco, what do you have to add?
Generally, the NGO I work for, APF, is the NGO that's responsible for ensuring the first response for any victim of human trafficking that is flagged in Portuguese territory, regardless of age, gender, nationality. So our work is to respond every time a victim is flagged, every time there is a suspicion that someone could be in contact with a human trafficking victim. And that someone can be law enforcement, NGOs, health services, civil society in general, or any other citizen. We have hotlines, and these hotlines are a main tool for our work, because it's through these hotlines that anyone that wants to ask for our services, for our assistance, can call. And in that moment, we start to work that case in particular and that process. So every time an entity or frontier officer or police force or any other person or professional has contact with a child that he or her thinks that can be a human trafficking victim, this professional should flag the situation to our teams. What we call our multidisciplinary teams are the teams that do this assistance in the first moment. So in case, let's imagine to make it easier, we have a police officer at an airport that has contact with a child that he thinks can be a human trafficking victim. He can call our hotline, and one of our teams will go to the airport and start working with that child, start making a first intervention, a general assessment of the case, a general assessment of the child's needs, to see if there are actually human trafficking indicators or not. So our role is to be activated, let's say, every time a new case is flagged. And we will go to the place where the presumed victim is and start evaluating if there are actually human trafficking indicators and what are the main needs of this child or of this victim in particular, so that we can also refer or activate any other services that could be needed in that case in particular. Our teams have psychologists, social workers, social educators. So this is our main field of expertise. We are solely specialized in human trafficking. So we work only with human trafficking victims, not with victims of other crimes. Obviously, if a human trafficking victim is also a victim of other crimes, we work in that case in particular. So we have a very specialized work. We have 5 regional multidisciplinary teams that cover all the Portuguese territory, the continental Portuguese territory. Each one of us covers a region, and what's supposed to happen according to our national referral mechanism is that every time a case is flagged, our hotline is activated and we go to the place where the victim is so that we can start assistance. So this is our general role, and it operates in the same way regardless of the victim's age. Now, obviously, the way we conduct our intervention and the type of services and entities that we need to refer to are different in case of the victim being underage, a child or a minor, let's say.
Thank you very much. Regarding the same question, Sir Albano, what is your opinion?
Just to explain one thing, Commission for Citizenship and Gender Equality and myself, I am the National Rapporteur for Trafficking in Human Beings. So we coordinated the actions concerning THP at Portugal. A child will never appear in my radar, but it appears on, for instance, in a transit situation in the airports, where the police have specific guides, and we have since 2021 a specific guideline for intervention with child victims of trafficking that is mandatory for everyone that could lead with possible child victims of trafficking. So it's very clear from that date, and it's also take part of our national legislation, that it's mandatory to use this national referral mechanism for possible child victims of trafficking. Everything is very clear, and for these professionals, for the law enforcement agencies, and also for the NGOs that work with child victims, namely the multidisciplinary teams that act at the regional level and have intervention in the process of signaling and supporting these potential child victims, and to see what they need, what they don't need, and could lead them to go to a shelter or other situation if he's not a victim of trafficking. So we coordinate all the process. We have this national referral mechanism for child, as I told you, since 2021, and we also have another national referral mechanism. It's broader for adults, and is the more comprehensive, not specific for child, since 2014. So this is the guidelines that all the network dealing with trafficking issues, both from state institutions, namely law enforcement agencies, and NGOs should go and to know what to do, when to do, and how to do. So it's very clear for us what are the actions we should take in a possible situation of trafficking, namely for child victims.
Thank you very much for the very clear explanation. And now moving on to the second question. Can you describe one routine practice or protocol that has improved cross-sector information sharing in your professional context, and one change that would make that process significantly better? Regarding the second question, Madam Branco, could you explain what is your experience?
So generally, whenever a child is flagged, we have to refer to different services. So we have to work with different sectors, let's say, here in Portugal. If the victim is flagged by another police force that is not the police forces that are supposed to investigate human trafficking, our teams also refer immediately to the police force that investigates this kind of crime, so that the case starts having all the needed procedures, let's say. In Portugal, we have judiciary police that is responsible for investigating human trafficking. And all our 5 regional multidisciplinary teams have specific focal points inside the brigades that investigate human trafficking. So this coordination with the police force is very effective. So we don't go through general channels of information. We go specifically and we work specifically with brigades that are responsible for investigating human trafficking victims. So I think this is a best practice that we have here in Portugal. This close relationship and this complementary relationship, work relationship between our multidisciplinary teams and the police force responsible for investigating these cases. But because it's a child, we also have to activate child services. So in each case, it depends how we do the work of activating child services. We can refer directly to the child court. We can refer to child services. Normally, we evaluate the situation with the police force that will start the investigation to see in the best way to not compromise this child's safety. Because, for instance, regarding child services, that could be cases where it is not desirable, let's say, in a first moment to refer to a very local services. Because if the family is involved in exploiting that children, we have to have certain procedures to keep the child safe. And generally, child services work also with the families. Only after knowing that the family is not a source of danger, so after a first evaluation, these services stopped working with the family and work directly with the courts. So we have to assess all these aspects whenever we flag a child and see the best way to proceed in that case in particular. I think a procedure that made a big difference recently in Portugal was having shelters specific for human trafficking victims that are under 18 and that are unaccompanied. It was very important. I think we have this shelter since 2019, I believe. I'm not sure. So a few years. And it is a very successful practice because it allows us to shelter these children in a safe place, a place where families that could be involved in the trafficking process or people that appear to be family but are really not family and have fake documents and present themselves as family. In a way, the child is secluded from all of these contexts until someone is sure that these contexts do not represent a danger and that these people are not involved in the human trafficking process. Before having these shelters, often these children were placed in general shelters, let's say. So with other children that have specific measures from child protective services, and often these measures include receiving visitors for their families and their parents. So let's say it's an open door service. Obviously, it's a service with children, so with all these protocols that intend to protect children, but it's not secret shelter, confidential shelter. Anyone can know the address, or anyone can pop by and try and visit that child in particular to try and manipulate the child to escape. Because when we talk about children that are 14, 15, 16, we have this trauma bond between the child and the ones that are exploiting her. So sometimes these children want to get back to these families that are actually exploiting them, but there are also the only families that they know. So regarding human trafficking with children, we have to have in mind all these aspects, and this trauma bond that is established sometimes between victim and explorer, it's even more significant when the victim is a child. So having a shelter specific for the children victim of human trafficking is a best practice that we have here in Portugal, and it's very successful.
Thank you very much. Regarding this same question, could you tell us about your experience, Sir Albano?
The protocols we have in place, this national referral mechanism, give us a cross-border and a cross-intersectional action when a child victim is detected. It depends whatever it is, in transit, in the airport, in a frontier, in land frontier, sea frontier. When it's find a child, whatever is the situation, we have a protocol that is mandatory for everyone to follow. We have technical instruments that are mandatory and help us to use it and to know what to do, when, how, and who should do.
Thank you very much. Now moving on to our third question. In your experience, how do criminal justice priorities and child protection priorities align or conflict in trafficking cases? How have teams reconciled those tensions to keep the child's best interest central? Regarding this third question, Madame Branco, could you explain what is your experience?
To reconcile these two aspects of the intervention whenever a child is flagged can be very demanding, because normally when the victim is not a child, we only deal with the criminal aspect of it. We only deal with the criminal court, with one court in particular. when the victim is a child, we have to manage two different courts at the same time. So we have to manage the case that goes through family court and the case that's happening in criminal court. And often our teams, with the teams of child services, or what we also have here in Portugal that's called the multidisciplinary teams that assist courts. So the teams that are more specific to family courts, we are called EMATs here in Portugal. We have CPCJ, which are the standard child services in the community, and EMAT, the one that works with the child and with the court. And these are always social teams, let's say, and also our team in the case of human trafficking victims. So I think that the work made between these social teams, being CPCJ or EMAT, being the one that articulates directly with the court or the child services, it's a very important work to balance these aspects of the intervention, to balance safety and to balance child's best interests. So it's very important to have articulated work, because often what we see is that child services or child courts in particular are not very aware of the specifics of human trafficking. And they are specialized in family matters and in helping families organize their dynamics and in helping families take care of their children in the best way possible, or in finding alternatives to children that do not have the families that are able to do such work. The gaze that the family court has is very focused on that child and on the family and in the community aspect of it. Having a human trafficking case, it's not the norm, it's an exception. So it's very common that judges are not very familiarized with these aspects. In the first moment, do not even expect for a mother or a father to be trying to traffic that child. So imagine that they want to have the best child interest in order and to assess the relationship between child and mother or father. They could indicate them to be together, to have visitors, things like that could compromise the child's safety when there is a human trafficking case. I think that balancing the work of these two courts that are managing two different aspects of that child in particular process is demanding work. And I believe that these three social teams, including our own that I mentioned, are key aspects to this work of ensuring that both courts are aligned and have all the information they need to make the best decisions possible.
Thank you very much again for this very comprehensive answer. Regarding the same question, Sir Albano, could you tell us what is your experience?
When you talk about the child best interest, we have in Portugal, in spite it is a child victim of trafficking or other questions that is concerning the protection of child, we have a very comprehensive system that's always, or at least supposed to, always act in the best interest of the child. So the child is put in the first place to know how to intervene, how to act, and how to do it. When it's concerned to a child victim of trafficking, everything is there in this national referral mechanism for child for all the stakeholders, both for NGOs, both for justice system, both for law enforcement agents. Every stakeholder that could take contact with a possible child know how to do. Because this national referral mechanism for child, it was built with every stakeholder. It's not an instrument that we create and we say, have to apply it. No. It was not done like that. Every of these stakeholders, from the justice, the public prosecutor officer, from the NGOs that deal directly with child victims of traffic, from the law enforcement agencies, and everyone take part in building, with my office and the Observatory of Trafficking Human Beings, everyone takes part on creating this mechanism, this tool that guide us in the action we should have when find the child victim. The justice system put in place the child at first. This is a prerogative at national level. In what situation the child is in danger or not, it's the place is to put the child in the center of the approach.
Thank you very much. And now on to our last question. What practical recommendation, that is policy, protocol, or small operational change, would you give to a colleague in another country to improve cross-sectoral cooperation? So regarding this first and last question, Madame Branco, what do you think?
The best recommendation I would make is to have specialized teams in human trafficking. I think that our model here in Portugal is very successful because we have our multidisciplinary teams that are the first responders and dedicate their work exclusively to supporting human trafficking victims and also to raise awareness about this crime. We also do capacitation sessions and things like this to make sure that professionals are aware of this crime, are aware of our team's work, and are aware that they can contact us whenever they are in doubt of having a human trafficking victim. And I would say that this is a very good advantage because we do not only have professionals that are specialized in these matters, but these professionals are often the glue between all the other services that have a role in assisting a victim in particular. So I think that whenever we have a case, when we have to work with a health service, when we have to work with the police force, when we have to work with family law, when we have to work with social services, we are ensuring that in all these areas of work and in all these areas of intervention, the victim is not re-traumatized and does not have to deal with difficult situations whenever they need to go to each service. And also we are making these services aware that this is a reality and this victim exists and there are ways that we have to deal with their cases and to guide our intervention in these cases. So I think that having a multidisciplinary team that takes a key role in activating all the other resources and also that establishes a supportive relationship with each victim, it's key to the success of our intervention, I would say.
Thank you very much. Regarding this last question, Sir Albano, what is your opinion?
Look, I know because I take part in a seminar in Malta concerning this, also with the child protection and child victims of protection, and everyone is very engaged to find the best solutions, adapt to their own countries, their own reality, and to put the child best interest in place and in the first place when we are dealing with it. So what I could advise is when you are building a system, please take everyone on board. Don't make it for what you think, but make everyone participate in building it. Because when you construct something together with the other stakeholders, they appropriate this and they make it as a practice because they recognize themselves on it. So it's the best way to build these instruments, these technical instruments to help possible child victims of trafficking.
We would like to sincerely thank you, Madame Branco and Sir Albano, for joining us today. It was really a pleasure to have you on the podcast. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found today's discussion informative and insightful. And on behalf of the SafeBorders Consortium, we truly appreciate your commitment to this important issue and to protecting children from trafficking.